Strength Chris Duffin, along with Brandon Morgan, coming at you today with a fun topic, carb sources. So carbs are an interesting thing. They may not be required, such as if you're following a keto diet or a carnivore diet or something like that, but they are an incredibly valuable tool, particularly in regards to performance. So we're going to talk about supplementation of carbs. And let me just start by saying, outside of the training window, there is no reason to have a supplement as a carb. Go eat some whole foods, my friends. Food, it's your friend. But there is a reason to have carbs around the workout window. Not saying it's required, but there's reasons. So let's talk about those reasons. So an easily digesting carb around the workout window, timed with a proper level of electrolytes, protein, you're gonna be able to enhance the training and recovery environment. This is the anabolic window, as you say. This is when we actually stress the body and when then it starts recovering, and we want to be able to have those nutrients and get them to uptake. All right. And there's some other key things that we can have happen. So the reasons, I've got MPS. You may have heard us use this term in a number of videos, muscle protein synthesis. So enhancing the carb period, we can actually, and I've got a little graph here, I'm going to refer to it for a minute, but if we have a spike in blood glucose, it's going to cause a release of insulin from the pancreas. And that insulin is the master hormone regulator for muscle protein synthesis through this process called mTOR. All right, so hugely beneficial there. The other reason is nutrient uptake, pulling those fluids through along with this process, but pulling all of those nutrients and the amino acids that we've got circulating in our bloodstream. Some, let's say our 80-20, our pre-workout meal, good nutrient intake as a whole. So you got both nutrient uptake as well as fluid and electrolyte uptake that are going to be important, okay? And then energy. Let's say you're doing a long, like a CrossFit WOD or a long run or something like that. You deplete those glucose levels that are remaining in the liver, which can last you about, 90 minutes? I think it's 90 minutes before we start hitting that. And that's where you can hit that wall, and that's where people will start sipping on like a Gatorade or a sugar drink. Well, that's one alternative, but using a slow release carb source can do the same thing so that you're not required on hitting, a bag of candy, your Gatorade, that type of stuff. So let's talk about that. What are some common mistakes, Brandon, that you see?
Yeah, so some common mistakes, probably one of the most prevalent ones is a single source carbohydrate. So we have to understand that each carb has its own distinct benefits and digestion rates. There's a time and place and a very important point in validation to spiking our blood sugar, but also we want that sustained energy release too. So having multiple carb sources can be extremely beneficial, which we'll get a little bit more into here in a second, but also just taking too much quick digesting carbohydrates, too much things like dextrose or maltodextrin, only that is a really common mistake. But also taking too much slow is a big mistake as well. We need that good combination of both slow and quick digesting carbohydrates. And the last few things here I touched on here is also poor timing and then not considering hydration. Poor timing being someone that takes it either at the very start of their training session or midway through. We got to get it pretty far beforehand to actually have a substantial effect on our actual training, but also, like I said before, hydration. There's actually particular carbohydrates that we'll talk about today that actually improve hydration in some study-proven ways. Now, when we start to talk about quick versus slow, here are some common examples of each. When you think quick, you think dextrose, you think maltodextrin, and rice syrup solids. But slow, highly branched cyclodextrin is a really popular one right now, and Duffin's got some fine words to say on that.
I'm gonna dive into that. I'm gonna let you go through this, and then I'm gonna give you the down low on a few of these items.
Absolutely. So another slow being oat starch, carb 10's a popular one right now, and platinose, another popular one right now. But we need a combination of quick and slow. Usually good general guideline is actually 3 total carb sources, at least 3 total carb sources. And again, we want a good mixture between quick and slow so we can not only accomplish this sustained release, but also kind of get the benefits of both these lines right here. Both get the quick, fast increase in blood glucose, but also the sustained release. Both of those have fantastic benefits to a number of different things. We'll talk about more here in just a second.
Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned, the single source to, getting that combination of both, because yes, too much of these, actually just a huge spike in blood sugar is not a good thing. You'll see in this graph over here that it causes a crash afterwards. Not good for your training. Also, too much is going to allow that insulin to drop and push it into not just the muscle tissue, which is primed in this process, but into fat tissue as well. And also large spikes over time can lead to heightened insulin resistance, which is going to be very bad for both muscle gains and body composition, let alone general health. Okay, so that's the reasons that we don't want to be pulsing a massive amount of just this. But the single source, and Brandon mentioned the rule of thumb, at least three different carb sources. In the references, we'll have some research in here pointing to that, which is around the complexity of the lower GI tract. So the lower GI tract has so much going on that even though we can create some amazing designer carbs, there's so many different avenues for the uptake. There are, there are portions that are meant to actually uptake certain types of carb sources only. And so having multiple carb sources has been proven to enhance nutrient uptake. So a really important thing when we're talking about this, it's not just the release of those, it's those things as well, which is really important to understand. Now, designer carb sources, Carb 10, Platinose, these are brand names. This is a pea starch and this is a modified sugar. So these are designer carbs because they're, we've taken a carb and actually manipulated its structure to enhance those benefits. These are really popular because people are selling these without, oh, you're not going to have the insulin response, you're not going to have the fat gain. This is what you want. But understand, that is tailored for a specific audience. That is hitting this reason for energy. This is somebody going on a 2 or 3 hour run, doing a longer endurance workout outside of that 90-minute window, but it's not going to enhance the benefits of being able to build the muscle, right? So a lot of these in this area also sell on this theory of low osmolality. So it's going to a low molecular weight, and it's actually going to pull through the GI tract and pull it into the lower intestine, which is where we're going to start getting the nutrient uptake, the fluid and electrolyte uptake. So that's the benefit. Oh, we can do this. We don't necessarily need this and the insulin spike with it. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about highly branched cyclic dextrin. So highly branched cyclic dextrin is an expensive carb source. It is a designer carb source, and it is sold on this low osmolality effect. But in practice, maltodextrin shows more faster GI clearance than highly branched cyclic dextrin. So the selling of the science of how it's supposed to work and what it actually does in practice are two different things. So you're paying a lot of money for something that isn't delivering those results, but at the same time can cause a little bit of digestion issues, and because of, again, that lack of clearance, a little bit of bloat, slosh, and uncomfortable feeling that can have a negative effect on your workout. So it is effective along with, but I would suggest, in my opinion, going with another starchy powder. We put oat starch powder up here, but there's a lot of other type of that fall in this category. You can get potato starches, you can get a whole bunch of different pieces. Now, I want you to think about, we're thinking sugars, fast, carbs, slow. It's not necessarily, these are highly modified in some occasions with the designer, but they're also very manufactured. They're powders. So maltodextrin we put up here, fast digesting. This is a complex carb. Platinose, or I can't remember, ismalatize, I can't remember the actual name of it, is a sugar. But maltodextrin digests like this, or absorbs like this. This is an impact on your blood glucose level. Maltodextrin has an impact on your blood glucose level like this, and our sugar, in this case, has this. Very little spike and a long tail. So I refer to these as long tail carbs. So if you ever hear me in any of my discussions talking about long tail, that's what I'm talking about. Now, you may not be familiar with the rice syrup solids that we put up here. So you're people like, oh yeah, I know dextrose monsters. Why do they throw in rice syrup solids up here? There's actually a lot of research, and you can check our references here, around rice syrup solids and hydration and electrolyte uptake. So we're talking about pure pulling the fluids in, being able to get just a water pump, right? So there's a lot of research dating back, I think a lot of it is in the late 90s, early 2000s, but very valid, and there's more research currently as well relating to that, and rice syrup solids consistently outperforming those go-to rehydration drinks like Gatorade, Pedialyte. So it is actually far superior at pulling fluid through the lower intestine and into the cells that we want to use. So now we can start thinking about this. Oh my God, what do I want to do? Well, what I want to do is use 3 sources. I want to hit hydration. I want all this stuff right here, right? Okay. So I want a long tail. I want big uptake, so I'm gonna go with rice syrup solids. I want a long tail, so I'm gonna pick something in this arena here. I'm gonna pick 3 of them as a whole, all right? You are going to start getting something that looks like this. And what do we have? We have MPS. We have nutrient and fluid uptake. We have sustained long-term energy. This is where we need to go. So this is, I'm writing you the recipe, let alone not down to the details of how to create an incredible carb drink and powder that will meet those needs. So right here is your recipe for an incredible carb drink. Now, there are ways that we can enhance these actions and tailor to this further, but you're going to find about that in other pieces that we do, or potentially other products that Build Fast will release in the future. Brandon, you want to dive in on any of the issues that or areas that I didn't touch on in here?
Absolutely. So one other thing we have to understand, just to bring this into relevance here, is that a 4% reduction in hydration status can decrease our performance by up to 30%. There's a lot of studies like this showing just astonishing figures like this that are just really, really crazy to think about, because when we start talking about carbs, what are we trying to do? We're trying to improve our work capacity, improve our energy, improve our ability to hit those hard sessions on a day-to-day basis. But if we don't consider hydration, it's not going to nearly be as effective. It's just not. So when we talk about hydration, there's been a lot of studies, as Duffin talked about, there's been a lot of studies showing rice syrup solids are very beneficial for hydration. There's been some studies shown in infants, and rats, and then more studies are likely to be done in the future on actual performance. Not a lot have been done yet, but it's been showing quite unanimously that there's a huge benefit to hydration and uptake of electrolytes, uptake of sodium and potassium, and also just improving our body's ability to stay hydrated during our training. So when we start talking about different carb sources, we have to bring hydration into the discussion. So when we talk about different carb sources, a lot of products are doing a good job of including these designer carbs such as Carb 10 or Platinose, but how many products, Chris, have you seen with rice syrup solids?
Very few.
Very few. Very, very few. So we have to include all these factors to creating a good, very beneficial product. Now, one last thing I want to touch on here is the fact that, as he mentioned here, highly branched cyclic dextrin, it's a great idea, but it's kind of being sold on a theory. In actual practice,
it does work.
Yes,
but for the price, I would choose another product.
Absolutely. And Chris just gave you a fantastic combination here, thinking about those slower digesting carbohydrates such as Carb 10, Platinose, including some quicker digestion carbohydrates.
And this can be a little hard to get a hold on, so if you're mixing your own up, using malto or dextrose in that solution is going to be effective as well. Those are the other items that are studied in the fluid and electrolyte uptake, right? So that's going to be similar to a Gatorade Pedialyte type mix. So it is acceptable. We're just saying, hey, there is something that's a little bit better in combination with those.
Absolutely. So just keep that in mind. Multiple carb sources are very important just to touch on here at the end. Multiple carb sources is very important. Consider quick and slow. Consider hydration, and consider actual hydration status, because it's going to tie in very importantly to all of this.
It doesn't do a lot of good to down those carbs and not have the fluids to go along with it, now does it?